Hello friends, good morning, good morning. I was going to talk to you guys about curriculum today and specifically what it is that you would want to purchase for your family as you're trying to figure out homeschooling. So each kind of subject is self-explanatory from your own education growing up, but we're just going to kind of briefly go through what I think most families should be at least attempting to cover in the school year. So number one, always going to be number one for me is English. Sometimes people call it English language arts, so ELA. That can encompass spelling and grammar, or you can make that like its own separate thing. I usually buy packets in both categories. So for spelling, for instance, I'll use its own workbook, something that's specific to only spelling, so that they focus on that and that's their one thing. And there's a spelling test at the end of the week, so they know that it's its own thing. Same with grammar. I have a grammar book. Well, I had a grammar book. Anyway, it's specific to its own thing. So it does its own thing, specific to grammar. But then English language arts can be its specific thing as well. And I prefer a particular kind of curriculum that does something like this. So it's, this is moving beyond the page. This is, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. This is specific to this one book. So this one spiral contains homework about each chapter in a specific book that you read separate from your spelling and your grammar. So I like this kind of workbook situation where they fill out the blanks and they read. Read is the name of the game with language arts. Okay. Then, in addition to doing English language arts and spelling, I definitely cover math. These are the hierarchy, the big ones that most schools make sure you cover no matter what. So they'll test your child if they end up reintegrating back into public or private school, and these are the things they'll be tested on. So English, spelling, and math. So you want to make sure that they're staying on grade level, or at least comparatively so they don't end up having to go back behind a letter grade, or sometimes they go ahead a letter grade depending on where they are in math and English language arts. So with math, there's lots of different kind of curriculum out there, so many different kinds. Each one is just very specific to your teaching style and their child's ability to learn. So you have to kind of figure it out for yourself, what works best for your family. However, I would say that if you grab workbooks that have math problems that are specifically lined out and that you can focus on one theme at a time, like just subtraction or just adding at a time, that seems to be helpful for most children. Saxon Math is really vigorous, but I appreciate what it does, where it does comprehensive all kinds of math at the whole time. So you're always building on old concepts while also building on new concepts. Just kind of depends on your child and where their comfort level is. But I recommend through the summer to be working through one of these thinner workbooks that you can order. This thing by itself is like $20 on Amazon, and you can kind of just keep their ability on the table. That is to say that most kids are going to be behind the curve, and maybe the whole globe will be behind the curve after COVID and all of us not being able to do the normal education that we normally do. And so with that in mind, I would continue to work through some curriculum through the summer. I would keep doing it just to try to stay doggy paddling above the surface. All right, I cover math. I love social studies. Now, social studies, they don't typically have a whole lot of time for that in the classroom, study of human beings and society. However, if I was you, I would buy a whole lot of what we call the Dover coloring books. So these things are really easy ways to get your child interested in different kinds of historical moments. So this, for instance, is the Lewis and Clark expedition, and it's going to have an image that they color. So I photocopy these off and give them out. And then there's going to be a little blurb at the bottom, just like a half paragraph or paragraph explaining the page, and it's going to give history, it's going to give facts and dates, and it's going to kind of encourage further learning. So it's like they're coloring, but they're learning. See, and that's a great way to use art, especially if they're a kinesthetic, hands-on learner. It's a great way for them to connect to the material. So like, for instance, I usually display it on the wall afterwards, and once their art is displayed, they remember it. It's like, oh, look, everybody saw my picture of Rosa Parks, and so they'll remember, oh, Rosa Parks, I drew a picture of her, she was sitting down on a bus. And that'll be a connection for them, a social connection that makes it easier. Also, it's helping if your child is a visual learner to connect to the material. For instance, we did this with our elementary, earlier preschool ages. And so, you know, they get to color the picture, and I say, what color is the sloth? In the video, we saw him, he's gray and brown. And then that way they're able to say, oh yeah, gray and brown. So they connect the color, remembering the animal. Okay, what kind of vegetation? What is he surrounded by? You know, then we color, and I'm like, oh, we got some vibrant colors around this parakeet. You know, it helps them to connect and remember the material. Now, most teachers have studied in depth how to move from short-term memory to long-term memory, how to teach for long-term memory. And there's a lot of articles. If I were you and I was a parent, I would just try to figure out a couple little links on how to teach for long-term memory. And specifically, if you can tie it to a positive memory, so if they can have fun with it, music, if somehow music can be incorporated, or art. If you can use art, then you can actually help them remember it forever. Long-term memory is the goal, but it's really difficult for teachers to make that happen. So if you have the ability, if you find out that your child is really interested in something in particular, like they're like, man, I just can't get enough Sacagawea. Oh, well, matter of fact, I found this for $5 on Amazon. Let's do some pictures together. And then you just capitalize on it. Also, I find that especially with, like, I taught 7th grade, when you're talking about kids that have a whole lot of words that they need to get out, if they can do some sort of like theater, dramatic screenplay, cosplay, they can connect to the material in a really emphatic way. They will remember it forever if they have an opportunity to get artistic with it. So get creative, start Google searching all the cool creative stuff you can do. I also did a section that the kids really got interested in, which was like classic art and classic music. Well, you wouldn't think that kids would get into that, but if they color it, they do. So it's like a competition. Everybody, you know, draw a picture. I photocopy off the photo. They color it. The best one wins the Hot Wheels, or the best one wins the prize, or the best one, the one that's closest to the actual image without having ever seen the image, ends up winning the prize. Prize-based learning is very effective. So this is a really cool book, Masterpiece Collection, a coloring book of great art. So each of these, and I was surprised which students leaned on each one differently. It's a great opportunity for you to make connections to material, to color it. So I found that to be very successful. And you know, each one of these things, now this one was $15, but each of them was like $5. So it's comparatively cheap for literature. Also, here's the dinosaur one. We did a whole section on that. So once you find one thing like this, like, you know, this was $5. I photocopy it off. There's like 28 pages. We have a whole month worth of learning on here. We videotape, or we watch a videotape of each dinosaur. Boom, you got a whole month's worth of learning for $5. This one's a carnivore. This one's from the Jurassic period. You know, each one has something that's interesting. Look how much he looks like a reptile, you know, and then you Google a reptile and you find out the differences and the similarities. Oh, look at this guy. Look how many sharp teeth he has. How many sharp teeth do you have in your mouth? Only 2. So we only eat this much meat, and they eat all meat. So there's a lot of things that you can kind of get creative with. Anyway, I'm encouraging you to say, every time you spend that $20, $5 on your kids, and encouraging them to learn in a fun way that they can connect to the material, you're just giving them such a leg up, and helping them feel comfortable learning, and helping them connect to the material and make it like a long-term thing. I mean, education, the goal is to learn. So if you can figure out how your specific child's interests help them learn, you're doing great. Keep up the good work.